This is an Oculus Quest 2. It has an 1832 by 1920 resolution, inside-out tracking, and 100 or so degree FOV, and is fully wireless. And this is a OneWheel XR. It has a 750 watt hypercore motor and an Italian Vega Formula 1 tire attached to anodized billet, aluminum rails, a battery pack, and a mini computer. This has been pretty terrifying so far. Having the headset shut off as cars come towards you is also terrifying. So today I'm challenging myself to travel 2 miles to a set destination on a OneWheel wearing a Quest 2 and using only the 4 front pass-through cameras to see where I'm going. I have to make it very clear, do not do this. This is an incredibly stupid thing to do. As much as I love the OneWheel, it can also be pretty dangerous, as Casey Neistat and many other users, including other VR channels like Thrillseeker, have hurt themselves or in worst cases broken collarbones and ended up in hospital from purely riding a OneWheel to begin with, yet alone trying to ride one with relatively low res and poorly depth sensing cameras on a VR headset. This is because too much weight on the front of the board or accelerating too quickly can overpower the motor and can result in a nosedive. And since I'll be using the Quest 2's cameras that have generally pretty poor depth perception, it's going to be really difficult to judge how far forward I'm actually leaning on the board. So I'll be wearing full protective gear and have my cameraman with me, alerting me to possible obstacles or dangers. Again, don't f***ing do this. I'm a moron. On top of this, as many of you guys already know, shown by the outrage after the Washington Post's video of the journalist using his Quest in open sunlight, generally using these sort of headsets outside is a bad idea. You risk the sunlight hitting the lenses and causing damage to the display, as well as generally pretty poor tracking due to the sunlight hitting the cameras. Yeah, you heard that right. Not only do I have to deal with avoiding nosediving, hitting potholes, roots, or loose ground, but I also have to deal with the pass-through cameras cutting in and out, losing positional awareness, and generally being pretty inconsistent. So at times, I'm basically going to be riding blind. Again, I'm a chimpanzee with a VR headset and an electric tire that can go 20 miles an hour. Don't do this. First, a test drive to make sure my dumb idea actually works. I have one test ride before I set out tomorrow, so I need to make the most of it. Putting my helmet on basically sealed the Quest 2 to my face. This means I can barely take it off to see where I'm going if anything goes wrong within the headset. Okay, this is first attempt on the OneWheel. Probably the dumbest thing I've done on my channel. I can barely see anything because the camera's exposure is obviously cranked up really high because this is designed to work in relatively low light situations. These cameras are just about dealing with the sunlight. Oh, shit. Oh. The idea actually f***ing worked. I'm essentially the pinnacle of modern day technology, using pass-through and AR to ride a hoverboard. So, it worked, at least. I will admit, this was completely terrifying though, as the Quest 2's cameras are not meant to be doing this. This is essentially what I was looking at in the headset. The camera is completely overexposed and a constant Guardian notification warning me to redraw my play space. So I can kind of see this fence, I could see this pot over here as well, but this is going to be way harder than I thought it was. As you can see, definitely not ideal viewing conditions for riding a OneWheel. So why don't I just turn off Guardian? Yeah, smart ass. Turns out, if you turn off Guardian, it also completely turns off the ability to use pass-through. Because I have a feeling someone at Facebook or Oculus thought that someone might try and do something stupid like this and revoked the ability to do so. One of the possible workarounds for this is to download the pass-through API and set up something in there, but I wasn't able to get this working in time because, to be honest, I'm too stupid to figure it out. So Guardian turned on in order to use pass-through throughout this whole thing. Made my life a living nightmare, but it worked. Kind of. All in all, besides the problems, this was really reassuring to know that this actually works a day before I set out on this challenge. Today is the day. Knee pads, elbows, even some gloves in case I make a rough landing. My objective will be getting from my starting point to this bridge overlooking a beautiful forest as my finish line. This is around a 2-mile trip over road, gravel, old tramways and rocks, a forest, mud, virtually the worst environment to try and do this in, especially on a slick Formula 1 go-kart tire. I started in a relatively obscure area far from my home to, avoid doxing myself. Okay, this is the actual ride day. I have the headset on. We're out in a undisclosed location. I have a controller in my hand to dismiss the notification. So unfortunately, I have a Guardian Not Found icon constantly stuck on my screen, which is blocking most of my vision. I really started to feel the pressure at this point, especially considering how far I'm about to travel, the amount of cars and people walking past. I can't f this up. And boom, it was working just as intended, and I began my trip. Until I began to run into some serious problems. The more I rode, the more aggressive the Quest 2 started to become, as the Guardian system desperately wanted me to create a play space. So, we've noticed one major problem. If I go too far outside of the Guardian Not Found notification, it will just shut off the entire headset. In an attempt to get me to redraw my play space, the headset would completely shut off its front cameras and display a blank message telling me to take the headset off. This is, of course, a serious problem. Having the cameras shut off mid-ride, possibly while crossing a road, is incredibly dangerous. I kept going, trying to look around the virtual notification that was constantly flashing in my face to see where I was going. Eventually, things started to get better. Passing kids playing in the street and bewildered adults was pretty f***ing awkward, but everything was finally working well enough that I could keep going. It just shut off my headset again and said tracking lost right as I'm going downhill. Mark Zuckerberg, how is this a good solution to get people to use their tracking? Don't shut the headset off. Move out of the way, there's a car behind. Eventually, we came to the end of the street section and began the off-roading, where things got a lot harder. It's been pretty terrifying so far. It's an okay start. People give you weird looks. I'm not surprised, but we're about to do probably the hardest part yet. Holy Oh man, this is probably the hardest part yet and the most terrifying part, as the depth sensing cameras really struggle to figure out what is rock and what is flat. Oh shit. My cameras are shutting off. I really wish I was using a Quest Pro. There better be a reveal at Oculus Connect. These cameras are not good enough for Facebook's future of AR. The bumps were definitely causing the board to struggle, as my tire pressure was so high that each bump shook my entire headset, causing the cameras to freak out even more than they already were. This is basically what I was seeing at this point. At this point, I feel like I'm being bullied by Mark Zuckerberg. With the recent Quest Pro leaks detailing full-color 120Hz Sony cameras for pass-through, I couldn't help but feel how dated the Quest 2 really was. These cameras, as cool as they were initially when the headset released, are now definitely dragging the Quest 2 down. So, we're at the end of the rocky bit now at least, so it's a little bit better now. It's however downhill and on loose gravel. That will eventually take us up to the inevitable bridge, which is our finish line. I'd say we're about halfway at this point, and the hardest part is not over. So the wet gravel definitely isn't fun, very hard to deal with, but at least we can get a little more speed down here. Onto the gravel, having learnt a few valuable lessons with the previous trail, I began to cruise real smooth along this path. I started to gain a good amount of speed and constantly stay on my board. My adaptation to this tech and challenge was pretty quick, especially as I quickly figured out how to keep the cameras on more frequently. By this point, cameras turned off. So I've gone used to this to the point where it's pretty easy to ride now if the cameras actually stay on, but they continuously turn off during even this easy stretch. So I'm having to have to quickly take the headset off, allow it to shut itself off, and put it back on my head. So I'm disconnecting that eye sensor to see if it has my headset on, and it reactivates the camera. Or sometimes it will completely ignore that and I have to shut the headset off from the side and feel the button through these gloves and then turn it back on again. It's a disaster, but let's keep going. Now with this Quest 2 life hack of sorts and my arsenal of quick fixes, I was able to ride even faster and more consistently. Before I knew it, I'd virtually overcome the limitations put in place by Facebook and Oculus, as much as they probably hate me for doing so. Me and my cameraman continued up the trail, hitting bumps, gravel, sticks, stones, without much of a hitch. In fact, I hadn't fallen off once during this section, and we were finally nearing the bridge. This has gotten increasingly easier as I figured out how to deal with the camera shutting off. With just a kilometer or so to go, I began feeling like I had already won, and left Zuckerberg's VR limitations in my dust. Before I knew it, the bridge flowed into the black and white cameras of the Quest 2. We made it all the way to the bridge on a OneWheel with a Quest 2 on. This was a painful challenge. My eyes were sore and strained. Taking the headset off felt like when movies went from blurry black and white to like 8K with full HDR. It made me appreciate that as great as VR and AR is and how great it can be, it's still nowhere near where it needs to be for Facebook to expect me to spend full work days in AR. That might all change with the Quest Pro, but for now, I'm gonna enjoy this view. Was it worth it? You decide. Maybe a like, maybe a sub. Some huge thanks for making this a possibility. Thank you to my brother Haz, who offered his time to work as a cameraman and a OneWheel rider at the same time to get some of this footage. My cameraman's struggling a lot. Even he, without a Quest 2 on, is falling off. Pretty rough terrain. Huge thanks to Float Life for making some dope products like the float plates on my board that kept it undamaged throughout all of this. Not sponsored, just awesome guys with dope products. Louis Velasquez for making some of the music used and some extra camera work. OneWheel for obviously making such a dope product to begin with. Everyone that watches me on Twitch and hang out in my Discord that convinced me to make this video. And Thrill Seeker for convincing me to buy a OneWheel to begin with. I'd just like to say to you watching to this point, it goes a huge way for the watch time and recommendation of this video. So any success that this video has is really down to you. So thank you so much. Obviously, if you've watched this long, a like and a sub would go even further. Thank you. I'll catch you all in the next one. Provided I survive my next video idea. Peace. Bye-bye. Thank you everyone that's followed my Instagram, my Twitter, my Twitch, and joined my Discord recently. I'll be DMing all of the Synth Rider key winners on each of those platforms. And the winner from the last video's giveaway is Botted. I'll be contacting you through the reply to that comment or over on your channel discussion page. Thank you everyone for making this video possible. It's so cool to be able to afford the camera equipment to actually shoot this sort of stuff, and everyone that supports me on Twitch as well. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna get to working on this video because this recording's 12 minutes long. I need to cut it down. I get to it. I gotta make the thumbnail too.